In this video, we analyze anonymized paid loss data for an auto insurance provider in the extended link ratio family. This modeling framework formulates link ratios as regression estimators. For more information on ELRF, please see our other material on our website. Let's now open ELRF. By default, the Mack method, or regression formulation of volume-weighted averages, is fitted to the data, in this case, the paid loss data. The regression table, which we have here, shows the link ratios in this column. And these ratios will match volume-weighted averages if you went and calculated them in a spreadsheet. But the regression formulation means that we can calculate residuals and plot them by development, accident, and calendar time. Residuals are the differences between the observed data and the fitted model means. Equivalently, the residuals can be understood as the difference between the trends in the data and the trends in the method. In this instance, they clearly slope down by calendar year. What does this imply? Namely, that the trend in the method is higher than the trend in the data. The method grossly overstates the total reserve estimates, and we will see this in the forecast table. Let's now run the forecast. Here we have the forecast table. For each of these numbers, the blue numbers are the observed values. Given this is paid losses, these are the payments that the company has actually made in each period in the triangle. The black numbers are the fitted model means from the regression equations. Red or burgundy numbers are standard deviations. Let's compare the black and blue numbers. Except in the first development period, where it's all conditional on those numbers, the black numbers are often much higher than the corresponding observed values. And we can see this both by individual cell as well as the totals by calendar period. Further, the projected liability stream of $284 million is much higher than what the company has just paid in 2017 of $202 million, approximately. But if we want to do this comparison properly, we have to observe that in 2018 calendar year, we're not allocating any payments or projections for development year 0. So the number that we have to compare with is actually $202 million less the $13.6 million, which is about $188 million. So what we're saying in this method is that we're projecting the equivalent calendar year payments to increase by nearly $100 million. This doesn't make any sense compared to what we've actually seen in the data to date. If we look at the logbook, we can see the total outstanding, or the mean reserve, is projected to be $902 million with a standard deviation. Let's change the weights from volume-weighted averages to, say, use arithmetic averages, which is delta 2. It's okay to run the model, and you can see that we still have this problem in the residuals. If we run the forecast, we're actually even worse off. Our total mean outstanding has increased up to $1.17 billion now. And if we look at the liability stream in the forecast table, again the incremental table, we can see that our projections are even further out of sync. So we're now projecting our payments are going to increase up to $328 million, and so on for the later liability streams. Let's now look at fixing the issue in these residuals to see if there's another model in the ELRF framework that will actually enable us to address this issue. Let's now open the model templates. Here we have options for the regression equations to include intercepts, trends down the accident years, as well as the ratios. What we're going to select now is the trend and ratio, and for each consecutive development period, we're going to be including an intercept in the regression equation, trend down the accident years, as well as the ratio in the presence of the intercept and trend. Okay. And what we can see is that these residuals, especially in the more recent calendar years, are a lot flatter. Let's focus just on the most recent calendar years, the most recent 5, and we're going to exclude all these early data points from the model fitting process. you need to estimate. And now you can see that the residuals are a lot closer to being around 0, although there is still some indication that the model is overfitting. There's a tendency for these residuals to be more often negative than positive. We'll now optimize this so that we get the most optimal combination. And if you look at the regression table now, you could see that for almost all the equations, we have an intercept term. That's what this column with the estimators are. In the first 3 developed regressions, we also have a trend down the accident years. And for almost all the equations, again, we don't actually have a ratio. That is, the ratio is 1. It's not included in the estimates of the incremental losses. And the only exceptions to this are when we're looking at the final development year trends in the tail. Let's now run the forecast. And if we look at this forecast table, you can see that the black numbers are now much closer to the blue numbers in the more recent periods. And further, that these projections down the development periods is now much more in line with what we would have expected given the history in the earlier periods. So again, there's not much of an increase in, say, development period 5, whereas previously this was increasing substantially. And if we look at the liability stream, a projection of 230 million or so is much closer to what we would expect with the payments made in 2016 and 2017, again, when you exclude the early periods. If we look at the logbook now, you can see that our new model, where our total mean reserve is now 500 million. This is substantially less than the previous estimates using the ratio-only models of 1.17 billion or 900 million. So the key thing with any modeling framework actually is to make sure that the residuals actually indicate that you're fitting the data appropriately, that there aren't any remaining trends or other changes in the data. The only other thing to note, though, before we move to PTF in the next video, is that although we have actually more or less addressed the issues with the residuals in this framework, we still actually don't know what the calendar year trends are that the method has actually incorporated. In order to actually estimate those, we need to go to PTF, which is in the next video.